Jared Kushner, as we have learned from officials, is one of them. And so what's interesting here, though, is you pointed out his security clearance, that he hasn't officially turned over his foreign contacts to the FBI. That is something that the FBI needs, and apparently, according to those we've spoken with, the FBI has not even interviewed him for the security clearance yet. And so it does raise the question whether that is the case because of the counterintelligence investigation. The FBI, again, wants to gather as much information as it can before it contacts Jared Kushner. And we should point out that his spokesperson said today that the FBI has given him no indication that he is under investigation and has not contacted him as part of the probe. Anderson.
Pamela, we should point out also just the significance of this is that, in one regards, is that this White House has been able to distance themselves from just about, or has attempted to distance themselves from just about everybody whose name has been floated out there as being possibly having met with Russians and being interested subject of exploration by authorities, whether it's Paul Manafort, Carter Page, or Michael Flynn. We've seen the White House say, well, Paul Manafort barely worked for the campaign. We've seen the White House say Carter Page, the president wouldn't even know him if he, bumped right into him in an elevator. And Michael Flynn, clearly, though the president seems to be sticking by him, they have distanced themselves from Michael Flynn. Jared Kushner is in the White House still and is as closest to this president as one can get.
That's right. So it would be hard for them to distance themselves, presumably, from Jared Kushner. But I think it's important on that note to make a distinction here. The investigation into Michael Flynn, into Paul Manafort, and into Carter Page, the three individuals you mentioned, is a little different, and I think Evan can speak to this too, than what's going on and where they are in the investigation with Jared Kushner. At this point, what they know and what they're seeing is, he's touching multiple parts because of his role in the campaign with the data analytics operation, with his meetings, of course, with Michael Flynn and Ambassador Kislyak, and the fact that he had such a big role in the transition. And so that is a big reason why investigators are scrutinizing his activities. When it comes to Paul Manafort and when it comes to Michael Flynn and Carter Page, as we have previously reported, investigators have other information that is causing more concern as part of this investigation, though we should also say they have all denied any wrongdoing.
Yeah. Right, and Anderson, real quick, I will add, though, you're exactly right, that the fact that they're looking at Jared Kushner really does bring this not only at the doorstep of the White House, but inside the White House, and that's going to be much harder for them to say and distance themselves from.
Yeah, Evan Perez, Pamela Brown, we're going to be talking to you throughout the next 2 hours, throughout the evening, as you continue reporting. Jared Kushner's attorney has just weighed in. CNN senior White House correspondent Jim Acosta is traveling with the president. He joins us now from Sicily. What is Jared Kushner saying in response?
Yeah, Anderson, a brief statement from Jamie Gorelick, who is attorney for Jared Kushner, and we could show it to you. It says, Mr. Kushner previously volunteered to share with Congress what he knows about these meetings. He will do the same if he's contacted in connection with any other inquiries. So that's an indication there that they know that in addition to talking to congressional investigators, they may have to talk to law enforcement investigators as well, Anderson. We should point out we're in Sicily right now. The president is going to be attending the G7 summit down here over the next couple of days. Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump are not here. They left this trip earlier this week, yesterday, after they met with the Pope in Rome. The White House told us at the time that Kushner and Ivanka Trump left this trip because it was previously scheduled for them to do so. Obviously, that's going to be a question now in light of the fact that this is now coming up as a major story. And just to bounce off of what Evan and Pam were just saying, this is obviously very big news for this White House, and that it brings the investigation not only inside the White House, but inside the Trump family. And we should point out, Anderson, when I reached out to the White House for a statement, I received one within seconds. That is notable, not just because a White House should be responding to something like that in seconds, but we understand from talking to White House officials that they are ramping up their war room rapid response operations inside the West Wing so they can respond to these inquiries, respond to these questions that are going to be coming out of the Mueller special counsel investigation, out of these expanding congressional investigation, and what the FBI and the Justice Department are doing as well. And I talked to one White House official earlier today, Anderson, who said this is the reality of the world we live in. We have to get better at responding to these questions.
All right. Jim Acosta, thanks very much. I want to bring in our panel, Gloria Borger, David Chalian, David Gergen, and Philip Mudd. Gloria, just how complicated is this now becoming for the White House? Again, to reiterate the point that we were talking about with Evan and Pam, this does bring it into the White House in a way that they, though different than Michael Flynn and the others, they're not able to distance themselves, immediately from Jared Kushner.
No, it brings it right into the White House, and Jared Kushner is one of the president's top aides with top security clearance, in addition to being his son-in-law. I don't think they should be surprised, however, at all, that the FBI is looking into Kushner's contacts, and since we and others have been reporting this spring that Kushner considered himself kind of the man to see on all foreign policy issues, particularly Russia, and that he met with Kislyak, as you mentioned before, and that he also met with this gentleman recommended by Kislyak, Sergei Gorkov, who happens to be a representative of a bank that is on the U.S. sanctions list, which his representatives have told us that he didn't know at the time when he met with him. Their explanation of all of this, to me and to others, is that what he was trying to do at the time during the transition was establish a back channel to Russia, and that these were all what was called to me relationship meetings, and that it was perfectly appropriate. And they say when he testifies before the Senate Intelligence Committee and anybody else who asks him, that is exactly what he is going to say. The question is, does the FBI think that Jared Kushner's description of what these meetings were actually jives with what they know?
Yeah, and David Chalian, I mean, I guess the question is, meeting with a Russian banker who may have ties to Russian intelligence, is that someone you should be meeting with their bank on a sanctions list as a relationship-building exercise?
Right, so not only does this now go inside the White House, inside to the Oval Office, basically, and as Evan said, Jim said, inside the Trump family circle, but I also think what this news tells us is that the financial component of this is a growing part of the inquiry, perhaps, because Jamie Gorelick had in her statement, it is these meetings that the FBI is interested in, apparently, because that's what the statement said, that Jared is willing to talk about these meetings. And that meeting with the banker, we know that the financial component of this inquiry has already been opened, and now that this meeting with this banker is on the agenda, I think it is the first of beginning to see more and more how finances are playing into this broader Russia investigation.
David Gergen, you agree with that?
I do, absolutely. And, President Trump is going to be so furious at this news. First of all, he thinks there's nothing to it, of course, but secondly, the fact that it was leaked out there, internally he's going to be in a rage. But I do think he'll also recognize that this is increasingly dangerous because to bring it inside the White House, I think David Chalian, it's not just inside the White House, it's about broadening the perspective of what they may be looking at. It's about more than collusion. It is increasingly about follow the money. And does the money relate to the conversations in the campaign? What are all these things about? Is President Trump, has he known for a while that Jared Kushner might be in their sights? And is that why he's been so protective of a lot of this and tried to throw it out there? There are a lot of questions that are going to raise.
Yeah, and David, I mean, this White House has been, the last time I interviewed Kellyanne Conway, one of the things she was clearly stressing was the difference between Donald Trump, the candidate, what happened on the campaign trail, and Donald Trump as president and in the White House.
Yes.
This White House has clearly been, Paul Manafort now, in the official White House history of the campaign, was a bit player who really had, who just sort of seemed to be there for a short amount of time.
Just happened to be chairman.
He was, right, he was running the thing.
Right.
Carter Page is somebody they'd never even heard of, though, and there seems to be a lot of evidence that he didn't really do much, but the president did say his name as one of his 5 national security advisors, and then, of course, Michael Flynn as well. It's harder to do that.
Right. This almost has a sense of like a Greek drama now, with the son-in-law and the father and a figure. But I just think that this is, Jared Kushner is the sort of the nodal point between the campaign activities talking to the Russians and the banking that passed, and who knows, the president, because we haven't seen the returns, tax returns. So he's the person who probably has the most information to give. But I think that what the White House will ask, why are you singling him out like this? What is the legal significance of that? He's to move him up to a person of significance. When you're not saying he's done anything wrong, he's not a target. And we have to keep stressing that. He's not a target. He's not in legal difficulty at this point. But it's the political aspects of that. Why, when suddenly he's elevated and it comes inside the White House, the White House is going to be, they're going to really feel our enemies are doing this.
Phil Mudd, I mean, how does the FBI approach someone who, like Jared Kushner in this situation? I mean, he's, as David said, doesn't seem to be not a target, but he certainly has the ear of the president, a president who has called the investigation a witch hunt.
Let's be clear about this, and we'll get to the issue in a moment about why it's taking them so long to speak to him. If you're looking at this, and I'm going to give you something, Anderson, that sounds like White House talking points, we're in the midst of a Russian investigation that involves White House advisors. One of the closest advisors, obviously, is Jared Kushner. He's been involved with the campaign from day one. He's interacted with people we know are involved in this problem, including General Flynn, and he's had meetings with the Russians. If you're the White House, you're stepping back, if I were them, and saying, of course he's part of this investigation. We support the investigation, and you should speak with them. The reason it's taking so long for them to speak with him is understand when the White House walks into your office door, they're not only looking for answers, and they're not only looking for gaps. As Pamela was suggesting earlier, they're collecting a lot of data, interviews, financial information, travel information, because they want to have as much as they can about your pattern of activity to see what you say when you don't know how much they know. They want to see if you slip. They want to see if you say something different than they saw in some other interview. They want to see if you can explain financial transactions that you don't even know they have. So they're going to wait a while to ensure that when they walk in that room, they can box him clearly on questions where they already know the answer.
You know, Jeff Toobin, one of the things that is unknown is, oh, we don't have Jeff Toobin. Gloria Borger. One of the things that is unknown at this point, you know, is and has been commented on a lot, is that the president continues to seem to back Mike Flynn, saying he's an honorable guy. You know, there have been reports he's wanted to reach out to Flynn, even though obviously legally that's not a wise idea. And even though Mike Flynn lied to the vice president and apparently to others in the White House, and according to Sally Yates, engaged in some sort of conduct that could be seen as illegal, or there was illegality there, the president seems to stand by. And the question, of course, is why? And did Mike Flynn approach the Russian ambassador at the urging of the president, with the knowledge of the president-elect at that point? You know, what was that? Did he inform him all along the way? I assume Jared Kushner may have information about that.
He could.
That, I assume, is something that the FBI could ask him about as things that they would be interested in knowing.
Yeah, we don't know what how the FBI regards Jared Kushner's role in their investigation. He may be the focus of it to a degree, but nobody is saying that he's a target of the investigation. Nobody is saying who is the target of the investigation. We know that Jared Kushner was a backer of General Flynn. We know that he liked General Flynn, and we know that Donald Trump remained steadfastly loyal to Flynn because he was the first person, as one source put it to me, with brass on his shoulders, who actually went out there and supported Donald Trump early on, and Donald Trump believes that helped him get elected, and that it was very significant to him. So we don't know about any serious relationship, however, that the FBI would be looking at about Flynn and what Trump told him to say or do, if anything, and Jared Kushner, and how informed he kept Donald Trump, for example, of his meeting with Sergei Gorkov, very close to Vladimir Putin, works for this VEB bank, which is on an American sanctions list. We don't know whether he kept the president-elect informed about any of these meetings. I mean, we just, you know, there are
we also, frankly, don't even know if, I mean, we know based on reporting that Jared Kushner, while he was part of the transition team, was meeting with people in order for his company's business, with Chinese, looking into a deal on a building in New York. We have no idea if was this meeting with this Russian in order potentially to develop relationships as someone to invest in Kushner properties. That's, and again, I don't know if that's something the FBI would be interested in as well.